Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to season 3 of the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Kayla Smith, CEO of the Hormone Puzzle Society, a women's health hub for fertility, hormones, and pregnancy, an integrative, holistic nutritionist, doctor of natural medicine and training, creator of the Hormone Puzzle Method, an infertility warrior, 2-time boy mom, and women's health expert. This podcast is for women struggling with infertility, painful periods, terrible PMS, or really just any symptoms of hormone imbalance that they are ready to eliminate for good. Tune in weekly as we interview amazing experts in the field of women's health, breaking down those hormone walls, nerding out on nutrition, and having way too much fun. Whether you're beginning your journey or you've been struggling for years, we're going to finally help you put those pieces of your hormone puzzle back together so that you can get pregnant and eliminate those pesky symptoms for good. Not to mention, stay pregnant, have a healthy super baby, and easy postpartum. Are you ready? This season is packed with even more expert guests, sharing groundbreaking knowledge, giving you that jolt of energy that you so desperately need, sending you lots of virtual hugs, and inspiring you to take your fertility into your own hands and make that baby. Thank you all so much for tuning in and being amazing listeners. So now let's get started on your road to transformation. On today's show, we have Val Alcorn. She is an herbalist, a biodynamic grower, and owner of Woodspell Apothecary. Her home is in the North Woods of Michigan, where she cultivates medicinal herbs for digestive health and nervous system support. Essential elements of spirituality, ancestral traditions, and intuition play a huge role in how she makes medicine, grow gardens, and lives her life. On today's show, we're talking all about herbs for fertility, hormones, and women's health. And let me just tell you, ladies, this show is one you're not going to want to miss. And I would get a pad and paper or a pen and pad because you're going to want to take notes. I cannot wait to listen to this show again just so I can get all the nuggets of wisdom that she drops. So now, without further ado, I would love to welcome Val to our show. Hey, Val, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. I can't wait for this conversation. So let's dive into things. Tell me a little bit more about you and what made you really want to, focus on herbs and really women's health.
Yeah. Well, I've always had a really deep connection with the land, with plants growing up and all of that, but it kind of took a back burner in my life for a while. I did design work and whatnot for the corporate world for a while, but then I started having my own sort of chronic health and digestive issues and things that conventional medicine really couldn't, figure out. And it just felt kind of hopeless until I started, researching herbs and being introduced to naturopathic doctors and other things like that. And it completely changed my world. So I knew from then on that was something that I just had to do for a living. So about 5, 6, 7 years later, here I am.
Oh, I love that. I love it. So, and you live on a farm too, where you do your own herbs?
Yeah, well, you could call it a farm. We're in the forest. We live on 12 acres in the forest, but we grow, all sorts of medicinal herbs and mushrooms and food here in the woods. So yeah, it's a definitely unconventional type of farm.
I love that. And that's so crazy that you say that too about medicinal mushrooms. I've been learning a lot more about these. And I was listening to a lady in Canada was talking about going into the forest and looking for mushrooms. And I'm like, I'm in Tennessee. There's no forests here. That is so cool. I love that.
Yeah. And a lot of people are starting to grow them now too. So you can even grow your own mushrooms if you don't have any, woods or anything by you. You just need sort of a shady spot and you can grow your own mushrooms. So yeah, that's becoming kind of a big deal right now, especially in like the health world. And it's getting a lot more attention, I think.
I love that. I actually just started taking some additional mushrooms myself. So that's really fun. I'm liking them a lot.
Yeah. Awesome. Which ones are you taking?
Yeah. So I knew you were going to ask me that. If you said it, I would know it. It's some little tri blends that I got from my medical dispensary. Okay. I can't remember. I just know that there's like 5 different mushrooms in there, and I can tell when I don't take them, my energy kind of dips, and
Yeah.
I can definitely tell.
I mean, they're all just wonderful for the immune system and all of that. So they all kind of have those underlying sort of system boosting and supportive qualities. So even if you don't remember what they're called, I get what you're going for.
Yes, yes. So today we are going to talk about fertility and hormones and herbs. So let's dive into that a little bit. Tell me maybe your top herbs for fertility and hormones.
Yeah. So first of all, there are just so many herbs that are wonderful for female reproductive health and pregnancy in so many different ways. So it's, you should definitely be doing your own research and all of that. But these are just maybe 5 of my favorite sort of go-tos that kind of cover sort of a spectrum of different things that you might want to cover when you're talking about female reproductive health. So the first one is lady's mantle. And lady's mantle is one of my favorite herbs because it's kind of like, some people consider it a weed. It's not really something that a lot of modern Western herbalists work with, but it's an ancient herb, especially I'm Polish. So in my Polish tradition, lady's mantle has been around for medicine for centuries. And essentially it's a wonderfully soothing, sort of mild, tonic herb that supports women in all stages of life, from, the maiden, mother, crone, if you're into the sort of triple goddess aspect. As far as PMS, it's wonderful for stemming sort of excessive uterine bleeding. It's antispasmodic, so it can help to reduce cramps. It can also decrease breast tenderness. And so all of those things as far as, when you're actually having your menstrual cycle. And then a lot of herbalists, also folk herbalists, I suppose I should say, use lady's mantle in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy to help tone the uterus, and then after pregnancy as well, to help sort of restore the vitality and the tone of the uterus too. And then as far as menopause goes, lady's mantle is also used as far as physical and emotional support. So it's more of an energetic sort of medicine when it comes to menopause. But lady's mantle, as you can tell kind of from the name, it's meant to be a female feminine herb. And so it's just very soothing, and it's very safe too. Of course, everybody should do their own research when you take your own herbs, but a lot of people use it on a regular basis. You can take it for long periods of time with it being, a pretty safe option. And so that's one of my first go-tos. And then I also love raspberry leaf. A lot of people have heard about raspberry leaf being wonderful for the female reproductive system. And that's for a reason. It's very nourishing. It has a lot of vitamins and minerals and antioxidants that help to soothe the entire system, not just the reproductive system, but it's also astringent. So it helps to sort of strengthen and smooth the tissues of the uterus, which helps to make PMS less painful. It helps to stabilize sort of irregular periods if you're having trouble being regular. A lot of people also use it for nausea or mood swings. And so it's good for a wide variety of sort of menstrual cycle issues, but also for pregnancy too. It's wonderful because a lot of people use it as a sitz bath after pregnancy to sort of tighten the uterus and heal the tears, that anything that might be happening there. So it's just a very sort of tonifying, nourishing herb in that sense. And just like lady's mantle too, it's also sort of a tonic herb, so you can take it for long periods of time. And a lot of people do actually use raspberry leaf during pregnancy. And I know that's sort of a touchy subject with people taking herbs during pregnancy. But yeah, so that's a really wonderful one too. It's part of the rose family, so it's wonderful for the heart chakra as well. And so I love raspberry leaf. It's very abundant too. So if you live somewhere where there's wild raspberries, not only can you collect the fruit, but you can collect the leaves too and dry them and use them as teas in the winter, or just make fresh infusions of them. So raspberry leaf, definitely one of my top ones. And then I think a third one I would definitely recommend is motherwort. And I think many, if not most, herbalists will just go on and on about motherwort because this herb is so comforting. And like its name, I think names can tell you a lot about herbs, for just first and foremost when you're introduced to an herb, because motherwort really is like just this motherly sort of presence, nurturing presence on an energetic level, at least if you're sort of an intuitive or energetic healer, because it really goes straight to your core. I had a friend describe her once as being sort of, when you're taking motherwort, it's like getting an internal hug onto all of your organs. Like it's instantly just soothing. It's a nervine. So not only is it wonderful for reproductive health, but it's wonderful for soothing the nervous system. And because it's so just all encompassing, it's really indicated for panic attacks too. So a lot of people will go to that if they're having more acute sort of nervous system problems. But as far as reproductive health goes, it also contains just different compounds that help to relieve uterine spasms. It's an antispasmodic. A lot of people use it for postpartum depression too, because again, going back to its nervine qualities and its nurturing qualities, it's wonderful for that sort of postpartum sort of phase or season in your life. And then kind of just like Lady's Mantle too, it's also used during menopause to help support the body physically, emotionally, energetically. And so on sort of all levels, motherwort can be used to support the system, tone the uterus, all of those wonderful things. And unlike the other herbs that I just mentioned, motherwort is kind of more of a bitter herb. So a lot of people will take motherwort in like a tincture instead of a tea. And so if you're not used to sort of like bitter herbs and whatnot, it can be a little bit of getting used to, but once you sort of get used to sort of the bitter compounds and bringing that back into your life, it can be incredibly soothing and comforting as well. And then just quickly going over maybe two more, just because I have trouble picking and there's so many wonderful ones. Is a really common one is ginger, and ginger is actually a wonderful herb for male reproductive health that has actually been shown to increase male fertility, but I also love it for female reproductive health because it helps to sort of decrease nausea. A lot of people will use it during pregnancy, and that's one of the herbs that, you know, science has determined to be safe during pregnancy. So if you're dealing with nausea either during your period or while you're pregnant, ginger is, you know, something that a lot of people will reach for. And it also can help with cramping and those sorts of things. And then lastly, I would definitely recommend rose, because just rose in general just encompasses femininity. It's ruled by Venus. It's this heart chakra herb. It's more of, in my mind, sort of an energetic support or emotional support as opposed to, you know, the physical support like the other herbs that I've mentioned. But it can really just help you get back into touch with your own femininity, your own sort of cycles in that way. So rose is definitely a must-have. And if you're using some of the other herbs too, you can also use rose as sort of something to enhance the flavor and make it a little bit tastier too. So it adds that sort of aromatic note, which I love about rose, or rose hips. You can use rose hips too. So yeah, those are maybe my top 5. But yeah, I could go on and on.
Yes, I love that. Oh my gosh. And I've tried many of those, but I haven't tried them all. So definitely would love to. And so that would be my next question. Is this something where, you know, somebody's listening to this show and they can just go, you know, get some herbs and start using them? Or do they really need to work with an herbalist to know kind of how to use them, what quantities, all of that?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on what you're comfortable with, because, you know, nowadays we have so many resources at our fingertips. There's so many wonderful books and information and just everywhere. Of course, it's kind of can be overwhelming to sort of kind of go through all the information, especially if you're first starting out. So I would definitely recommend, you know, searching for an herbalist in your area. A lot of herbalists will do sort of plant walks and herb walks, especially that will give you kind of a connection with the plants that are around you, that are growing around you. And especially for me, that was kind of the first sort of step into the herbal world, is just realizing that there's medicine all around us. So definitely maybe getting in touch with an herbalist in your area could be a great start for that. But yeah, again, it's just really whatever you feel comfortable with. Just start with whatever intrigues you. I think that certain plants call to us for a reason. Like, I don't think you gravitate towards a plant or an herb randomly. I think the medicine that we need always comes to us. As like a quick example, a friend that I had, she had like a burdock seed that got stuck on her shoe. And so she was just curious about it. And so she started looking into the medicine of burdock, and it actually proved to be just really healing and soothing for her when she started working with burdock root and burdock seeds. So I really believe that if there's a plant that is sort of, trying to get your attention, just listen to that and go from there and just see where it takes you, because it, might take you on a totally different journey than you would have even expected. So yeah, just start with that.
I love that. I love that. And where would we get our herbs? Is this something where, like we were saying earlier, I live in Tennessee, so I don't have a forest, but is it just, finding them outside, or is there a place where we can get reputable ones?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think especially when you're first starting out, if you're nervous about foraging anything yourself, and again, if you find an herbalist in your area, that's a great way to get more comfortable with identifying herbs, because obviously plant identification is very, very important when you're out in the wild. There are lookalikes to many herbs, so you want to make sure you're harvesting the right thing. So if you're just starting out and you're a little nervous about that at first, I would definitely recommend, buying from a local farm or a local co-op. There's herb shops popping up all over the place now. If you don't have any in your area, I also have a few that I love. Mountain Rose Herbs is a great one. They have a lot of organic herbs and just pretty much every bulk herb you could think of, and they're online, so you can get stuff from them as well. So they're one of my favorites. Frontier Co-op is another great one. You can buy stuff online from them. And so, yeah, just trying to find organic, at least herbs, because just like food, you don't want your herbs sort of tainted with chemicals. It kind of is counterintuitive in that sense.
Right. For sure. For sure. And so how do we take these? Is this something where, depending on the herb, we can do a tea or a tincture, or do they even come in capsule form? Like, how would we take them?
Yeah, definitely. That's the great thing about herbs too, is they're so versatile. And so you can really use them sort of to match whatever lifestyle you have. So there are alcoholic tinctures you can take. If you're avoiding alcohol, you can also do alcohol-free tinctures, which usually include glycerin or apple cider vinegar. And so a lot of times people will take tinctures of herbs that are sort of not very palatable, like more bitter herbs or intense herbs. So that's just a quick way to get your medicinal dose without having to like sort of deal with drinking a tea of it. But if you're taking herbs that are more tasty and all of that, you can definitely take them in a tea. Like you said, they also come in capsules. And a lot of people also just include them in food. You can include, herbs in food as well, like wild herbs, even our culinary herbs like cilantro, parsley, rosemary. They all have wonderful medicinal benefits that, our ancestors have included in their food just forever. And we need to start sort of bringing that back into our daily routine, our daily food, because food's medicine too. So yeah, it's very versatile to really just use what works with your lifestyle, because if you're not going to stick with it, then it's not really medicine in that sense.
Exactly. Oh, I love that. So it sounds like super easy to use. Just really do your research. And if you feel a little bit leery or confused, work with a trained herbalist. I love it.
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing. So let's switch gears a little bit. I talk about this a lot on this show about just living cosmically and living in tune with the seasons and in tune with the universe. So talk to us a little bit more about that. What are your views on this, and how do we start to live in this way?
Yeah, I think, there's sort of been a big trend towards, eating seasonally and eating the foods that are in season. So I think it would be just as important to heal seasonally too, and work with the herbs that are in season at that time in your life. And also not just the seasons of the year, but, the seasons within your own cycle, because we go through our own cycles especially as females, when we, have our menstrual periods. In sort of folk herbalism, we say that winter is sort of our menstruation period. And this is when we're supposed to rest and dream and plan and sort of indulge in that shadow self. And so you kind of need to learn to lean into that. And then we have sort of our spring, which comes right after menstruation, where we're feeling a little bit more renewed and our estrogen starts flowing again, and then all of those wonderful things. And then we come into our summer, which is our peak ovulation period, where we really need to nourish the sort of the uterus and the reproductive system and our body as a whole too. And then during autumn, of course, this is the PMS sort of cycle, which can be rough for people. So it's really important to attune to that sort of season of our own cycle too, and learn how we can support whatever symptoms we're having and all of those wonderful things. And so, yeah, just sort of really listening to where you are, not only in the physical seasons around you, but also internally too. And so I kind of like to sort of work with different herbs at different periods in my cycle. Obviously, this doesn't, happen every single cycle, but the more that you come in tune with your cycle, the more you'll feel more aligned, I guess. And so I've been doing this thing recently where during the first few days of menstruation, I just won't plan anything. Like I won't be doing any physical labor. I won't be doing super important meetings or anything that requires a lot of physical or energetic or mental work, because that's the time when we are supposed to rest, when we're supposed to indulge in that sort of winter season, that hibernation. And there are actually some cultures in the world where they would actually send the women away when they were bleeding on their menstruation or their period, so that they could, spend some time by themselves, because they believed that the blood actually had sort of these spiritual powers, and they were kind of afraid of them, which is, actually really interesting. But it was probably nice for the women to sort of be separate and be isolated in that time of her cycle. So I think it's really natural for us to at least try to sort of isolate ourselves for at least that first initial period. And then, during sort of either the spring or the summer, like parts of our cycle, we could use different herbs, like I mentioned, like raspberry leaf or nettle or horsetail or lady's mantle, which are wonderfully sort of nourishing, soothing, tonic herbs that can help to sort of prime the uterus and prime the female reproductive system. And by doing that, you actually reduce a lot of the symptoms that you have during your autumn season, your PMS season. And so just by sort of preparing for that can make your cycle a lot more smooth, even enjoyable maybe. And so when your autumn cycle does come around, you can use just more sort of acute herbs to deal with whatever, symptoms you're using. Like if you're having cramping, you can use motherwort and ginger and all of those wonderful herbs too. And so just knowing what your body needs at that moment can really sort of bring things back into alignment and make it just a much easier transition from one season to the next. And one other thing too that has been kind of important for me is actually tracking my menstrual cycle to the season or the phases of the moon. So they actually have sort of lunar phenology wheels where they have all of the phases of the moon, and then you can track your menstrual cycle in conjunction with that. So you can see, how your mood is affected by whatever phase the moon is in at that period, and see, what your mood was like then, what your body was doing then. And then once you come more into alignment with your body and the seasons, a lot of people notice that their menstruation cycles actually align with the moon, which is really fascinating. A lot of people will start their menstruation on the new moon, which is considered the winter season of the new moons or of the moon. So it's really fascinating to see how those two correlate too. So just on an energetic level, sort of aligning with those things too is really fascinating to do.
For sure. I love that. And we talked a little bit about that on the show as well, just aligning with the moon, and even people that are no longer cycling, whether they're supposed to be cycling or whether they're in menopause, and trying to live cyclically through the moon phases can actually help them eliminate or lessen their menopausal symptoms. And I've even had clients where they've brought back their cycles because they started phasing with the moon, and they've just, gotten their body into complete alignment, and then it's brought it back. So it's really amazing. And some people will be like, it's a kind of woo woo, but it's actually not. It's based on science, and it works. So I love that you say that.
Yeah, and definitely, I think science is still far behind, the things that just our ancestors of thousands of years have known. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we know intuitively to be true that science just hasn't figured out yet. So agree with that completely.
Yes, for sure. And would you mind going through the phases of the moon just briefly for our audience so they kind of know how they line up with our menstrual cycle?
Yeah, so as I sort of mentioned, the sort of winter season is the new moon, and that's also when our period comes, when we menstruate. And so that's sort of, the death, rebirth sort of cycle of those things. And that's when we can really sort of indulge in the shadow self and all of those wonderful parts of us that we don't usually explore. And then we have the waxing moon, which is sort of our spring, when our estrogen starts flowing again and all of those wonderful things. And then we have the full moon, which is peak sort of ovulation period, all of those wonderful things when everything's abundant, everything's green and growing, just like the land, just like summer, just like the full moon. And then the waning moon, of course, is autumn. And that's sort of just the dying off period when we're letting things go, when we're shedding all of the things that we don't need anymore. And so, yeah, it's interesting to see how our bodies, the seasons, the moon, all of these things are connected. There are patterns and cycles everywhere if we just, sort of learn to look for them.
For sure. Oh, I love that. I love that. And I love this conversation. We could keep going, but we do have to take a short break. We need to hear a word from our sponsors. We're going to come back and talk practical tips. What are maybe your top 5 things that we can do today to start to optimize our fertility and hormones? So we'll be right back. Hey y'all, it's Coach Kayla here. I hope you are loving this episode as much as I am. We will be back in just a minute, but first, a word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Hormone P.U.Z.Z.L.E Society, a women's health hub for fertility, hormones, and the business of coaching. Whether you're struggling to get pregnant with pesky hormone symptoms, or you're working to build a career in the fertility and women's health space, we have you covered. Visit our website at www.coachkayla.com to learn more on how we can help you. Text the keyword fertility to 615-257-8855 for your free fertility meal plan. Hey Val, welcome back.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, so let's talk top tips. What are maybe your 5 top tips for starting to really live in harmony, living cyclically, and kind of, creating harmony in our bodies?
Yeah, definitely. So I think we can kind of look at this from both a physical and energetic level. So I'll kind of do that here. And of course, everyone's journey is different. Everybody has different needs and all of those things. But I think there are a few things that are just super important to, kind of keep in mind. And so since we're talking about, fertility and hormones and all of those wonderful things, I think first and foremost, just making sure your vaginal health is up to par and sort of connecting to that. I think it's really easy to connect to that aspect of our bodies, especially as females and whatnot. And so even checking your pH of your vagina, all of those things can be really helpful to know, your overall body health. And it's really important too for people who will be giving birth, because science has actually just figured out that, the exposure to the mother's vaginal microbiota becomes that child's gut microbiome, which is really fascinating. So if your own vaginal microbiota is off, your child's gut microbiome could be off balance too. And of course, the gut microbiome also affects how neurological development and nervous system sort of development as well. So it's really the base of everything. So making sure your own systems are in order is really important if you do want to have children, and just also for your own sort of sacred feminine, body and spirit and all of those wonderful things. So, checking in every once in a while with your vaginal health is super important. And then also, I would also suggest your gut health, just prioritizing that. I think it was who was it? It was like a Greek philosopher, Hippocrates or something, or Hippocrates. Sorry, I don't know why I mispronounced that. But he said, I think the source of all disease comes from the gut. And obviously there's a lot of different reasons why disease manifests, but I think there's a lot of truth to that, because there's so much going on in the gut. It's connected to our nervous system. We actually have neurotransmitters in our gut. So if our gut health is off, our nervous system is going to be off. It affects our immune system, our lymphatic system. It affects our hormones as well. And so our liver health, our kidney health, literally everything we do is, sort of influenced by the gut, especially in our modern lives when we have just so much overly processed stuff at our fingertips everywhere. It can be really easy to throw sort of that gut balance off. And so when we start realigning the gut, and that's sort of my main focus in my practice is, digestive health and bitters and all of those wonderful things, because I think it's just so important as sort of a baseline to getting overall health as a human being. And as far as sort of a reproductive health standpoint, eliminating gut inflammation sort of can boost fertility, because a major cause of unexplained fertility, up to like 70% or something, is due to oxidative stress, which comes from the gut and the immune system and all those wonderful, lovely things. So yeah, if we can eliminate that, we can boost our own health as well as our reproductive health. So yeah, I always say gut health, super important. And you can do this, obviously by just assessing what your body needs as far as dietary needs, and everybody's different. So there's so many fad diets out there. It's like overwhelming and can be really frustrating. So really just listening to your gut, I think, you know what's best for you as far as food goes, but also probiotics and prebiotics, super important. Bitters also are a wonderful herbal sort of supplement that you can take that will assist in sort of your gut health and all of those wonderful things. And then also, I forgot to mention, as far as vaginal health goes, on an herbal sort of spectrum, you can also do yoni steaming to sort of bring it back into alignment there. They have a lot of great herbal blends that will help to tone and strengthen the uterus from yoni steaming, as well as antimicrobials to sort of get rid of yeast or any sort of overgrowth of bacteria there. So yoni steams are great for vaginal health. And then also, this kind of ties into sort of gut health, but also just tending your nervous system constantly. Like, we need nervous system support every day, all day, no matter what season you're in. For me personally, I take adaptogens and nervous system supporting herbs daily, and I switch them up according to like the seasons and what's in season now, what I just want to work with right now, but literally making sure you're taking them every day, if they're in like a tea or a tincture, or just checking in with yourself and making sure that you're being supported, because our nervous system literally supports or is in charge of everything we do. It is in charge of our movements, our breathing, our heartbeat. Like, if our nervous system is off, we can sort of manifest all of these different issues. And so obviously we could do an entire college course just about nervous system support and all of those things. But, just at least opening that door to see how you can support your nervous system is really important for, just overall health as well. And like I said, it ties to your gut health too, and that contributes to inflammation, which, can cause infertility and sort of hormone imbalance. So all of those things are so tied together. So I would definitely say those three systems should be sort of the baseline for taking care of your body and your system as a whole. And then from there, you can, once you have all of those things in balance, then you can sort of pinpoint like what other issues you need to address and all of those things. So from a physical standpoint, those would be the three things I would say. And then maybe for a fourth tip, as far as energetically, I think it's really important that, especially if you do want to become a parent or something in the future, or you are a parent, is to face your traumas, which is, I think it's not addressed enough, as far as, especially, when people are trying to get pregnant and all of those things, because trauma emotionally and physically can just manifest in so many ways that we don't, I guess, realize at all. And so we can kind of address this through either therapy, like conventional methods like that. I've found really it to be really helpful to use sort of energetic healing. There's a wonderful book, I'm sure you've heard of it, called Eastern Body, Western Mind. And it's, like that was like groundbreaking for me, because it sort of goes through how all of these different traumas sort of arise and manifest in your life. And it takes a look at sort of child development from an energetic perspective. So not only do you understand like why you have certain tendencies, but you can also understand how to support your child or your future child better as well. So that book was groundbreaking to sort of understand trauma, because everybody goes through trauma, whether they know it or not, either unconsciously or consciously. So definitely facing whatever, issues you have just emotionally is super, super important and really helpful for that. And I say for my last tip too, is just to give yourself some grace just in the world in general, because all of this is overwhelming. I feel like we're very, spiritual beings put into these physical bodies. And so we're trying to figure out how to balance that and how to live in this sort of material world and all of those things. And so, we talk about supporting these different systems and taking these different herbs and all of these things, and it can be overwhelming. It really can. So just sort of giving yourself some grace to explore it, to listen to your body. And I think it's really easy to sort of fall into the trap of thinking, my body's broken, or it's failed me, or there's something wrong with it. When in reality, no matter where you are in life, you're still breathing. Your body has still brought you to this point. It's gotten you through so many different trials in life, and there's so many battles that it fights on a daily basis that you have no idea about. Our cells, our white blood cells, literally record every single germ that has passed through our body from our birth to our death. Like, our bodies are amazing and resilient, even if we don't feel it all the time. So I'd say if we could just, take a moment and, sort of think about how incredibly powerful and what sort of knowledge is in our bodies, because in reality, our bodies are made up of planets and stardust and all of these wonderful things. Our bodies are much older than our spirits. Like, there's knowledge and wisdom in our own physical bodies, which I don't think people acknowledge enough. So just, if you're feeling overwhelmed by it, I would say, just sit with your body and see what would it say if it had a voice. That was like one of the most sort of mind altering questions that a naturopathic doctor said to me was, he was like, this is going to sound kind of weird, but if you could sit and like, what would your body say it's feeling? Like, how is your body feeling? Not your mind, not your emotions, none of that. If you could just sort of disconnect your ego and all of those things, what is your body saying? Like, how is it feeling? And try to figure out how to accommodate it in that way. And so, just checking in every once in a while and, start shifting sort of those mindsets to thinking my body is divine, it's ancient, it's wise, it's, unfurling in exactly the way and the time that it's supposed to be happening. And I know it's hard to think that sometimes, especially if you have chronic issues, but, our bodies are listening to our minds all the time. They're in constant communication. So literally just shifting that mindset, even if we don't believe it, can be really powerful. So I guess those would be my top 5.
I love it. So much to unpack there too. So I'll try to remember all my points as you were talking. But I would love to dive in more on the herbs that can support us in our nervous systems, the adaptogens that you referenced. I love adaptogens. We talk about them on the show a lot. So kind of go through those briefly. What are some of your favorites and how do we incorporate those into our life?
Yeah, I think adaptogens are they're fascinating because, they're able to raise or lower whatever levels need to be in balance, which is fascinating because it's like they have their own sort of intelligent, being to them, which is really fascinating. But I love reishi. Reishi is a wonderful medicinal mushroom that's an adaptogen. I love Tulsi. Tulsi is just this wonderful heart chakra herb that's so supportive, both for the immune system and the nervous system, but also for the heart. So a lot of people who have been through trauma or anything like that, Tulsi can be a really great ally. And I think if you ask a lot of people, Tulsi is like one of the number one herbs that they, can't live without. And, there are also a lot of other herbs that are wonderful tonic herbs that aren't necessarily considered adaptogens, but they have a lot of adaptogen-like qualities. Like for me, nettle and burdock are two that I absolutely cannot live without. Like they have changed my life because I have been, sort of a procrastinator. I have sort of a cold, sort of damp constitution. So it's very important for me to sort of get sort of those energizing, sort of warming, stimulating herbs into my diet. And so just using those on a regular basis has, it's really improved my energy. It's improved my mood. And so just using herbs on a daily basis, no matter what they are, can automatically sort of bring your body back into alignment, because all herbs have flavonoids and different compounds that are anti-inflammatory. And as we know, inflammation causes so many diseases. So literally just by incorporating the herbs that you like, to the taste of or whatever, can be really healing and balancing for your body. But as far as, how to take them, I love burdock and raspberry leaf and nettle and all of those in overnight infusions because they're really potent. They're really, just very nourishing. So you can sip on them for the entirety of the next day. And then you just infuse another batch, that night. And basically how you make that is you just put some herbs in a mason jar and you cover it with, near boiling water like you would a tea, but instead of drinking it, you would just cap it up and let it infuse overnight. And then by the morning, you'll basically have a very potent sort of tonic herb infusion. And so tonic herbs are the best sort of herbs to use for this sort of thing. So also the ones I mentioned, along with like dandelion root and all of those sort of things. And so these very tonic herbs are great for our nervous system. They're great for supporting not only our body, but in turn, our minds as well. And I think it's also a matter of just finding what resonates with you. Like I said, everybody's different. Everybody has different needs as well. And I think we've become so used to sort of just packing everybody in one sort of container and just giving them this herb or this pill. It's sort of just a very Western mindset when there's so much more to it. We all have different constitutions. We have dry constitutions, hot constitutions, or damp or cold. So we need to find herbs that match that balance that. If we run really hot and dry, we might want to take cooling herbs like mint or lemon balm and things like that. So just trying to find herbs that balance you out are super important. And part of this is just experimenting too and seeing, trying different herbs out. And, if you're not sure how to use them, buy herb books. There's so many wonderful herbal books on the market that you can, work with to see how to take them, what's safe, what would be good for your situation too. So yeah, there's just so many wonderful ways to support the nervous system. But yeah, as an overnight infusion is one of my top ways to sort of take adaptogens and those tonic herbs to support my mental and sort of physical health.
Oh, I love that. I will be doing that.
Yes.
Just in my mind thinking, okay, what herbs do I need? Good. How do I infuse this? This is amazing.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's totally different than just a regular tea too. It's just like infusing them overnight really extracts all of the nutrients, all of the minerals and vitamins that they contain. So it's just a really fortifying way to take herbs that are sort of tonic herbs. You probably wouldn't want to do it with more bitter herbs and things like that. But yeah, adaptogens and those are great for that.
I love that. I love that. And you talked about yoni steaming to kind of get the pH of the vagina. And so you're talking about yoni steaming herbs into the vagina to make this happen. So a couple questions there. How do we know our pH is off down there? And how do we know what herbs to use for the yoni steaming?
Yeah, so you can take sort of vaginal pH tests, and that'll tell you, if it's off. They have, instructions and all of that with the kits and whatnot. And, you can kind of tell sort of what that is, what's going on down there. And I think also if you kind of know intuitively sometimes if like you're feeling off or there's a weird smell or like discharge or other things going on. And obviously, if anything like that is happening, get it checked out. But if you want to sort of support your vaginal health on your own, you can definitely do that with different herbs and add them to your steam. And so there's different sort of herbs. There's tonifying herbs, like especially, which is great for, post-pregnancy, those sort of postpartum things, like raspberry leaf and yarrow are all very astringent. Rose is astringent, so those can help really tonify the uterus. And then if there's sort of bacteria overgrowth or fungal overgrowth, there's also calendula, which is great for that. Trying to think of, that's the first one that came to mind. Peppermint is wonderful for that too. And also just a lot of people do it just as sort of a ritual to sort of embrace sort of that divine feminine that we have and just reconnecting to that part of our body. So you can really use whatever herbs you feel called to do sort of a ritual steaming, like lavender is wonderful for that, or hibiscus, or really just whatever feels very luxurious to you. And aromatic can be super sort of soothing on an energetic level too. So yeah, there's just anything that you would take internally for those sort of situations, or for inflammation, you could also use like lemon balm, stuff like that. Anything that you would take internally for those medicinal actions, you can also use in that steam too, which is, super useful.
I love that. And I know I've talked to ladies before about using it for fertility because it really does cleanses the reproductive organs and it can even help to unblock tubes. And it's just a wonderful habit to get into. And I don't think we talk about it enough. So we can do a whole show on just vaginal steaming, but we do have to wrap up. I know I've kept you longer than we said, but
that's okay.
That's great. Yes.
But and just one thing, if people are interested in that, one person that's like an expert on this who blows my mind every time is Valadia. She's sort of the creator of Earth Mama Medicine, and she has a YouTube channel and she provides all sorts of information. So she's a wealth of knowledge in terms of vaginal health and uterine health. That's not really my specialty. I know a little bit about it, but she is amazing. So yeah, definitely recommend her if you want to learn more.
I love that. I'll have to get her on the show.
Yeah, definitely. You should. She's amazing. Yes.
Awesome. Well, tell us more about you. Where can we find you? Where can we learn more about working with you?
Yeah, so I own Woodspell Apothecary, and I have sort of an e-commerce store right now where I sell herbal bitters and teas and salves and all of those wonderful things. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I also just leased a building in my hometown, so I will have a retail shop and supply different products from local herbalists too, which is really exciting. So yeah, those are the main places you can find me. I also have a website at woodspells.com, and yeah, so I also have a newsletter, so if you want to follow along there.
I love that. And we'll have all that in the show notes so it'll be really easy for people to find you. Amazing. And one question I thought of as you were speaking, but tell us more about the bitters. We didn't discuss that. What are the bitters for gut health?
Yeah, definitely. So that's kind of how I got into herbal medicine, was through my digestive issues. And like I mentioned, probiotics and prebiotics are super important for feeding and, putting in those gut flora into our gut. But bitters really prime our digestive system to get it flowing. So if it's sluggish or stagnant, it really helps with the elimination. It helps to detoxify the liver, which can really, in turn help with any digestive issues like cramping, bloating, heartburn, all of those sort of issues that we have, and can really help bring the gut back into alignment. And like I said, that's super important for all of the systems of our body. And also a quick note, which might be interesting to your listeners, is that we've also found bitter taste receptors in our ovaries, which is really fascinating. So anytime that we come into contact with these sort of bitter compounds, our taste receptors, whether in our mouth, our ovaries, wherever, really stimulate function within those organs and can help things sort of get flowing and reduce inflammation and all of those wonderful things. So yeah, bitters are a really powerful medicine to work with if you're having any sort of chronic or acute digestive issues like that.
Oh, I love that. Well, Val, again, I could talk to you all day, but we have to wrap up. So as we close, any final thoughts you want to leave us with, any piece of advice or words of wisdom?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you're interested in working with herbs or plants or taking a more sort of natural route, I always say to people, just be curious, like let yourself play, let yourself experiment. It's so easy to get overwhelmed, but just that's where we find our medicine, is learning to look for the signs, learning to see, what calls to us in that moment, and just having fun with it, because it's so easy to get overwhelmed with all of that stuff. So yeah, just remember to play every once in a while.
I love that. Oh, well, thank you so much for being here. It's been such a great conversation. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I loved it.
Awesome. And thank you, ladies, for listening to the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. Until next time, bye. Hey, hang on just 1 second before you go. I want to make sure that you are aware of all of the amazing free resources that I have for you on my website at CoachKayla.com. From a fertility meal plan, a cycle syncing quick start guide, a holistic healing cookbook, as well as master classes, blog posts by me and some amazing experts in the fields of fertility, hormones, and nutrition. So many wonderful resources that will help you on your journey. And I wish there had been something like this when I was going through my 2 years of infertility, but there just wasn't. And so that's why I decided to create all of this for you. So make sure that you go and check it out and you take advantage of this plethora of support that I have provided for you. And spoiler alert, these were some of the same tricks and the same foods that I used to get myself pregnant, not once, but twice, even after my doctors said that I couldn't. So I know that these things work. Make sure you take advantage of that. And I cannot wait for you to be my next success story. So thanks, love. See you soon. Thanks for tuning in today to the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. Check out the show notes for today's episode at CoachKayla.com. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and leave a review. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next week.